again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting episode of D&D Deep Dive, the show where we dive deep into classes, subclasses, and other features of 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons to help you get the most out of your choices. So, today, continuing along the ranger path we have been blazing through Tasha's cauldron of everything, it's time for the new ranger subclasses. Now, the reason I put new in cuckoo quotes is if you haven't seen my review of Tasha's Guide to Everything, I do mention that the vast majority of the subclasses for all of the classes are not entirely new. I think all but maybe one or two have showed up in Unearthed Arcana before they got published here. Obviously, the ones that are published here are probably going to be a little different than the ones that were in Unearthed Arcana, simply because the whole purpose of Unearthed Arcana is to get feedback and balance suggestions and just to make them play better. So for the most part, I'm probably going to be going over all of the ones, even the ones that I did the Unearthed Arcana versions of them, because they've changed a fair amount. Obviously, that's subject to change depending on how much is changed. Anyway, let's talk about the first of the Ranger subclasses, the Fey Wanderer. And I have to start off the Fey Wanderer with the little Tasha quote. As I mentioned in my review, every little section has a little quote from Tasha where she just kind of comments on the things. And this one is amazing. Tasha's quote is, "Do you think a kilt is a vital part of the Fey wandering aesthetic? And if not, why are you so wrong?" I just love questions like that. Is like, do you think this or this? And if you don't think this, why are you wrong? So yeah, I love Tasha's little stuff. But the Fey Wanderer, this is just your kind of standard Fey themed version of a class. Even before going into the features itself, sorry. You can guess they're going to have some abilities that deal with charm in some way, because all Fey-based classes have a charm something, whether it's resistance, whether it's the ability to charm someone else, they all deal with charms. And Misty Step is super popular with any Fey anything. So those are going to show up in here, because that's how 5th edition does Fey. Beyond that, however, the subclass itself is really interesting. It does have that kind of trickery aspect to it. One of the things I like most about this is just how dual wielder for friendly this is. Again, one of the things I've said over and over again is 5th edition is not friendly to dual wield rangers, which is funny because if you look at the thumbnails for any of my ranger videos, I put the ranger icon on all of these thumbnails somewhere. And the ranger icon is a pair of crossed scimitars with a paw underneath it. There's no bow at all in the ranger icon. But that was, for a long time, that was all they really did for 5th edition Rangers. And this one has quite a few things that will still work really well for bow rangers, don't get me wrong. They have a lot of stuff that actually could be really cool for melee rangers. So let's actually dive into the actual features. So at third level, you actually get 3 different features, which normally for me is a bad sign. When you're crunching too much into third level for a subclass, it generally means you tried creating a full class, realized you didn't have enough features for a full class, and now you're condensing it into a subclass. However, most of it is kind of minor stuff. Like one of them is Fey Wanderer Magic, which is just additional spells they have access to, which is how every ranger class starting from Xanathar's, or every ranger subclass starting from Xanathar's, deals with a ranger subclass. They always add in new spells to kind of augment how the class is played. So we'll talk about that in a second, but let's first go through the first thing you get at the third level, which is Dreadful Strikes. Effectively, when you hit a creature with a weapon, you can deal an extra d4 psychic damage to the target, which can take this extra damage only once per turn, and the extra damage increases to a d6 when you reach 11th level. So, as simple as that sounds, that actually already starts painting the picture of what this class is going to be. It mentions the target can only take the extra damage once per turn. It doesn't mean you can only do the extra damage once per turn. As we've talked about before, when we were talking about the optional features of the Ranger itself, whenever something says it can only happen on your turn, that is very different than once per turn. A round is composed of a turn for every single creature in combat. So if you do something on your turn, and then for whatever reason you get the ability to do something else, generally through your reaction on someone else's turn, anything like a rogue sneak attack or this Dreadful Strikes can trigger on someone else's turn before it gets back to yours. So that's the first thing about it. The second is it says the target can only take it once per turn, which means Dreadful Strikes really sets you up to be a kind of just hyper-mobile ranger where you're attacking multiple creatures every turn to get the most out of your damage. Pairing the Fey Wanderer with the movement feat, or the mobile feat, sorry, which makes it so you don't provoke opportunity attacks when you attack someone, turns this into a really, really cool kind of running around ranger. On the other hand, if you're a bow ranger, it just means you're shooting to the 2 different targets most turns to get the most damage possible. So pretty simple, but opens up a lot of tactical choices to make when doing that. Fey Wanderer Magic is exactly what you expect. You Charm Person, Misty Step, Dispel Magic, Dimension Door, and then Mislead is the last one you get access to at the 17th level. And Mislead, I think, is one of those spells that I think just isn't utilized anywhere near enough. Effectively, what happens is you cast the spell, you turn it invisible, and at the exact same time you turn invisible, an illusory double appears in the space that you're standing. So it looks like, to anyone that doesn't see through the illusion, it looks like nothing has happened. But you can now send off this illusory double to do whatever you want. It lasts for an hour. It's a concentration spell. But it lasts for an hour. This makes perfect scouts, especially if it's a dangerous area or something like that. Because if someone destroys your illusion, it doesn't really care. It doesn't matter. You can see and hear through the illusion if you want, though it works just like if you had a familiar you were doing that with, where you're blind and deaf on your end, but you can see through the illusion. And because it's a single action casting time, there's a lot of combat benefits you can have for it as well. Seen as, in the middle of combat, if you can convince the enemy that you're over here, something like that, and have them waste spells and the things like that trying to attack you while you're setting up something else or getting away or whatever you want to do. Yeah, it can be super, super useful. And invisibility in general is always is useful. So, yeah, I just wanted to focus on that particular spell. You can't use it until you're 17th level as a ranger, but it's still pretty darn cool and useful. In addition to the spells, you also get what's called a Fey Wild Gift, which is just something flavor that changes about you, like illusory butterflies flutter around you while you take a short or long rest, or horns or antlers sprout from your head. Again, just to give you that kind of more fey feeling to the ranger. The last thing you get at the third level is Otherworldly Glamor, which is whenever you make a charisma check, you get a bonus to the check equal to your wisdom modifier. So, again, Fey in general are a lot about persuasion and tricking and the things like that. Those are all kind of charisma based things. And a ranger is already a mad class, multi-attribute dependent, where you need both dexterity and wisdom. And with the changes they made for rangers in Tasha's, they actually made wisdom a useful stat with things like, changing your companion's attack rolls to your spell attack bonus, and a bunch of other things linked to either your spell save DC or your wisdom modifier. So, yeah, it's actually important now to get both your wisdom and dexterity higher, whereas in earlier versions of the ranger, it didn't really matter what your charisma score is. So this, or it didn't matter what your wisdom score was. So this actually gives you more use for your wisdom modifier, because now you can effectively use your wisdom instead of your charisma, or technically in addition to your charisma, whenever you make charisma checks. So deception, performance, persuasion. In addition, you gain proficiency in either deception, performance, or persuasion. If you combine this with Canny from the optional features, you can become a very, very, very convincing ranger really, really quickly, because now you can double your proficiency bonus, you're adding your charisma bonus, and you're now also adding your wisdom modifier. You instantly become a silver tongue. So I like that. It's interesting. Again, I'm generally not a huge fan of having three abilities right at the third level. But overall, I don't think this is horribly done, though I do think they probably could have shifted Otherworldly Glamor maybe as a secondary 7th level of a feature or something like that, just so you're not getting everything all at once. Beguiling Twist is the 7th level of a feature, which gives you, strangely enough, advantage on saving throws against being charmed or frightened. It's how all the Fey-based subclasses and things like that work. However, you get some more stuff, which I think is really cool. In addition, whenever you or a creature you can see within 120 feet of you succeeds on a saving throw against being charmed or frightened, you can use your reaction to force a different creature you can see within 120 feet of you to make a wisdom saving throw against your spell save DC. And if they fail, they are either charmed or frightened by you, your choice, it's not dependent on the original spell, for a minute. And the target can repeat the saving throw at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect on a successful save. So a lot of people don't know what the charm condition actually does, because most spells that have that inflict charm also explain the flavor of charm they inflict. But charmed itself is just a standard condition, which does two things. One, a charmed creature can't attack the charmer or target the Charmer with harmful abilities or magical effects, and the Charmer has advantage on ability checks to interact socially with the creature. So that's what Charmed means, and that can be super, super useful, especially if you're dealing with creatures that have area attacks. Because not only can they not attack you, they can't make an attack where you will be affected. So if you have a spellcaster that's raining down fireballs or lightning bolts and just decimating your team, charm them and get your entire team to be as close to you as possible. Set up of a fireball formation, because the enemy won't be able to target you with anything. Frightened, everybody knows how Frightened works. Disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls. Well, I can see the thing it's frightened of, and it can't willingly move closer. Both of those are really, really useful in a bunch of different situations. So choosing which one you want to inflict really adds a lot of utility to this ability. Another thing that's nice, it's a reaction ability, as I've said before. Actually kind of be super important in 5th edition. The more actions you get to use, and that includes bonus actions and reactions, the better your team will be doing. So this just gives you a reaction you can always use. It is for a very specific condition, so if your enemies aren't charming or frightening creatures, it does become a little bit more difficult. However, you can use this whenever a creature you can see within 100 to 20 feet succeeds on a saving throw against being charmed or frightened. So if your party is casting charm effects or frighten effects, you can still use this ability even if the creature that's saved is an enemy. The only limitation is you can't try and recharm that particular creature. It does say it has to be on a different creature. But yeah, super, super useful. Again, with the fact that you can choose between Charmed or Frightened, it really adds a lot of tactical decisions as far as when do I want to use it and how do I want to use it. So when we get to 11th level, we get what's called Fey Reinforcements. And this one adds one of my favorite new spells, which is one of these summon spells. Summon Fey, which is a 3rd level spell. It doesn't count against the number of ranger spells you know. You can cast it without a material component, which for Summon Fey, it actually requires a flower, something like that. I'll tell you in just a second here. I just read it and I forgot. A gilded flower worth at least 300 gold pieces. So because it has a monetary value, this is not one of the material components you can replace with a spellcasting focus. So normally you would have to pay $300 for this flower. Luckily, it's not consumed by this spell, or this spell will become significantly less useful. But for the Fey Wanderer, they don't need that. They can cast it without material components, and they can cast it once without using a spell slot. And you get that ability back once you finish a long rest. The other thing about this, whenever you start casting this spell, you can modify it so that it doesn't require concentration. If you do so, the spell's duration becomes 1 minute for that casting. So normally, Summon Fey lasts for an hour. But if you modify it while you're casting it, which there's no limit to how often you can do that, it only lasts for a minute, but it also doesn't require concentration. Now, I've mentioned this before. Concentration is the huge balancing aspect of 5th edition magic. It prevents it prevents spellcasters from making really broken combos. Anytime you can remove concentration from something for whatever reason, which are exceedingly rare. I think I've seen that ability one other time, and I think it was in an Unearthed Arcana thing. I don't know of any official source that allows you to remove the concentration requirements. Yeah, anytime you can remove that, you are massively changing the balance of a certain spell, making it that much more useful. In a more practical method, you could theoretically, because it's just a single action kick a cast time, you could theoretically cast this spell 2 or 3 times to have multiple Fey creatures summon Fey under your control simultaneously, which would be something unique to this creature. Now, this subclass. Now, because this is still a ranger, they're a half caster. They don't have that many higher level spell slots. So burning all your spell slots and summon Fey might not be the greatest idea, but it's an option. And again, I really like the new summon spells into Tasha's anyways, because they give you stat blocks specifically designed to be a summon instead of monster stat blocks that we have to modify in order to make it work as a summon. So, yeah, love that. And then the 15th level ability for the Fey Wanderer is Misty Wanderer, and this is my favorite. You can cast Misty Step without expending a spell slot. You can do so a number of times equal to your Wisdom modifier and regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. In addition, whenever you cast Misty Step, you can bring along one willing creature you can see within 5 feet of you. And they teleport with you. They appear in an unoccupied space within 5 feet of you. Okay. I have mentioned before, I like teleporting characters. I'm a big Nightcrawler fan. My quote-unquote main D&D character that I played for years was a Shadow Monk, because they could Shadow Step and bamf all over. In 4th edition, I built and used in a 4th core game, which was D&D hard mode. Like, it was crazy fun, but it was super hard. That was built around the character itself was a hybrid Avenger sword mage, because each class got abilities that allowed them to teleport. And I could teleport like 4 or 5 times per encounter. I like teleporting characters. I think it's fun. Misty Wanderer turns the Fey Wanderer into Nightcrawler. It turns it into a teleporting character. And when you combine that with the 3rd level ability, Dreadful Strikes, it makes it even easier for you to kind of wander around as this hypermobile character, doing as much damage as physically possible by hitting as many different creatures as you can with your melee abilities. This is actually one ability that I think actually favors melee melee rangers a little bit more than bow rangers. Not to say that it's not super useful for a bow ranger to have a 30-foot to teleport. It is. It super is. However, a melee character is just going to get a lot more use out of the ability to move much faster than other characters through to teleportation. So I love that feature. Overall, I think it massively changes the class at like the 11th hour into, I mean, the subclass was already pretty interesting, and then Misty Wanderer just turns it into an absolute beast of an awesome class. So for the final thoughts, I really like this as a subclass. Again, I'm always a fan of anything that allows me to play a melee ranger, because again, they are not supported anywhere near as well as bow rangers in 5th edition. And boy, does this fit really well with a melee ranger. That being said, this is still a very viable ranger for bow rangers, because nothing here specifically limits your ability to use it at range. There are just certain aspects of class that tend to give even more advantage to a melee ranger than a bow ranger, but you are not a disadvantage anywhere with this. Love this. This is summon Fey thing. Misty Wanderer is by far the best ability ever. The only thing I don't like about it is it shows up at 15th level instead of the 3rd level, because I like my teleporting characters, but it makes perfect sense that it's a 15th level of ability. It's a badass ability, and I think someone should have to invest pretty far to get it. So yeah. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. It lets me know you like this. It lets YouTube know you like this. And that means they will let other people know that they might like this. In addition, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more content like this. Because Tasha's just came out, I'm trying to put out... I have been putting out normally put out to 2 videos a week. I'm trying to push it to the 3 while I have this Tasha stuff here, because there's so much in here that I want to cover as much as I can, as quickly as I can, so people can start using it. Also, hit the notification bell, because sometimes I put these up at odd hours, because my brain doesn't like me, and I don't get to really choose when I'm productive. So yeah, in the comments below, when you think of Fey, and you think of a character that has been Fey blessed or Fey packed or anything like that, what are the things other than Misty Step and Charm that come to mind when you think of a Fey blessed character or a Fey aligned character? Let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, again, that is all for me today, and I will see you guys next time, all right? Bye-bye!